I think it's important to acknowledge, yeah, there's grief there. And then at the same time, there's joy and there's gratitude. Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back to another episode. We are starting off a new season. This is the first episode of season 3. And admittedly, I have been percolating on this idea of grief. And, we're at the beginning of a new year. And oftentimes when we're at the beginning of a new year, we talk about goals and we talk about how great the year is going to be. And we talk about all of the things that we're grateful for. And I think all of that is valid. It's valid to acknowledge all the things that we're excited about for 2026 in our personal lives and our careers. It's valid to acknowledge all of the good things that are happening in our life. And what I want to recognize is that inside of all of that exists a global space of grief. And why I wanted to talk about this is because it is pervasive. A lot of what we're seeing, the trauma that we're seeing, the grief, the loss of literal lives, but also the loss of what we thought, envisioned certain things in our life, in our world, could and should look like at this time. And so I want to talk about this sort of complexity of grief and how multiple things can be true at the same time. In my own life, as I've been reflecting on the dichotomy and the complexity of this space of grief, what comes up for me is there's a space of gratitude that exists intertwined with the grief that I experience. And for me, the grief is really very much global. It's about what's going on with people in the world. What I do and what I'm here for is the healing, the connection between people. And what I see every day is the continued breakdown of connection and communication. And it's being demonstrated and being modeled at the highest level. And then it allows the uprising of the uprising of behavior from people that isn't consistent with a person's highest self. So for me, when I look at what's going on in the world today, and I look at, as I raise my son, what the world that he's growing up in and into, it makes me sad sometimes. And there's this underlying grief in my sort of day-to-day walk. And at the same time, I can pull these bright spots, these moments of gratitude. And these are moments of gratitude, of course, in my personal life, but I can look out and I can see the bright spots that are happening. For example, at the time of this recording, the Walk for Peace is happening. And the monks came through Georgia right around the end of December, beginning of January. And when I look at what they're doing and what they're standing for, it gives me a bright spot and gives me some gratitude that there's some balance that's trying to happen, right, in this very unbalanced time. And there is a pastor who has walked from New York. He's currently in Georgia walking for peace as well, nonviolence. And so I think about that and what he's doing. And then in my communities, listening to the conversations that we're having, coming together and empowering each other and reassuring one another that we will get through this and move through this together as community, like seeing community come together in these pockets fills me with gratitude, and the gratitude personally that I have people in my life, that I have community in my life, and gratitude for my son, and gratitude for the house I live in, and gratitude for the work that I do, that I get to do work that I absolutely love. And so there's a background for me. There is a very much a complexity. There is this grief of what's going on in the world day to day. and a questioning of what am I doing? What is mine to do? What am I doing? Am I doing enough? And there's a little bit of grief sometimes even around that. Like, am I doing enough? Could I be doing more? And I know that the work that I am doing, which is the work of healing connection between people through trauma informed communication, does make a difference. That makes a difference. I have this grief of the world that my son has to see and that my son is growing up into, but I also have this gratitude that he feels that I'm safe enough to come and talk to about these things, that we can have conversations that prepare him for success, and that he walks with an incredible amount of emotional intelligence for an 11-year-old. And so I'm saying all this because I think that it's important to acknowledge both. It's important to acknowledge the grief that persists in our lives. And that's not to say everyone is experiencing grief, but it is to say that many people are, and maybe are avoiding or pushing it away, right? And replacing it with this space of, like, no, we're just moving forward. We're just focusing on the positive. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I think it's important to acknowledge, yeah, there's grief there. And then at the same time, there's joy and there's gratitude. And we can. And so for those who are deep in that grief, for those who are experiencing that grief, sometimes we can feel guilty about experiencing happiness and joy, especially when others are grieving in the world, right? When others are grieving in the world, when all of this trauma is happening, sometimes it could cause some of us to feel guilty about feeling joy and gratitude in our own lives. And so, what I'm here to say is that the two coexist, that you can't have darkness without the light. You can't recognize grief without the joy and without the gratitude. And I think that it's important to, especially for our well-being, for our health, for our physical health, for our mental and emotional and spiritual health, to recognize the moments of joy, the moments of gratitude within the grief, allowing the grief to be what it is, allowing and acknowledging that it's there. And it's not like a steady state line. It is something that rises and falls. It's something that comes in moments and waves and recognitions. This month will be the third year without my sister Kenya. And I was having a conversation with my friend and bestie about something completely different, but the conversation brought up a remembering. And as I remember that time, that grief, it wells up. And at the same time, simultaneously, I can smile at the memory of Kenya. And a lot of times that we talk about joy and gratitude and trauma cannot coexist. So when we experience those moments of gratitude and those moments of joy, even in the midst of grief, then we actually protect our nervous system from long standing or long term embodiment of trauma. And so the message that I want to bring today is, if you are experiencing grief, give yourself permission when you're ready. I'm not saying force it, because here's the other thing, that oftentimes people who exist in that strong mindset or in that let's get through it, let's get over it mindset, I think sometimes we want to rush grief. We want to push through it. We want to be like, can we get over it already? And so I'm not suggesting that you do that. What I'm suggesting is that you allow it, and simultaneously allow the gratitude to come in when you're ready, when you have the capacity and the bandwidth for it. Allow for and give yourself permission to feel those moments of joy and gratitude, and for some, even relief. And if you're a person who is noticing the grief and noticing the trauma and noticing and feeling joy, allowing yourself to be present to what that feels like for you and still experience the gratitude and the joy and the peace and the positive emotions, because these things can exist interconnected with one another. And this is the healthy way for us to have human experience. And then the last thing I'll say is that we are not beings in isolation. And I say it all of the time. I say it once, I'll say it again and again and again. When we are experiencing all of these threads of emotions, all of these swirls of what may be grief, what may feel like some aspect of hopelessness, resignation, cynicism. Believe me, I felt all of these things in the past 90 days. That the thing that keeps me is that I don't allow this stuff to sit in my brain and percolate without communicating it. Finding those people who you trust, who are safe in your world, who can empower you without trying to fix the emotion. These are the people with whom you can exist in these spaces and that pull you through when those valleys back up into the plateau or even to the mountaintop. That may be your church community or your spiritual community. That may be your spouse. It's amazing how sometimes we hold things in from our partners and our spouses because we want to be strong for them. But they are waiting, our friends, our spouses, our partners, our siblings, our parents are waiting to support us. So if those people are in your life and you are holding it in, holding this grief in, trying to feel strong, trying to be positive for others, I think to be human is more important. And so as we move through these very tumultuous and turbulent times, I invite you to allow the grief and allow the gratitude. Allow the resignation and allow the possibility. Allow the joy, allow the laughter, and allow all the feelings that you're feeling as we move into the new year. Allow the excitement and allow the uncertainty, right? So, all of these feelings that coexist, but allow them in community, allow them in, instead of having it be just something that you experience all by yourself. Who are the people in your community? Who is the community that can support and lift you up during those times when you're in the valley? And I think that's one of the most important things that will continue to get us through when we experience these ups and these downs in our emotional selves. And for some of us, if that community is not enough, then we reach out for more help. We reach out for a therapist or a coach or a body worker or an embodiment person. And so that is, part of the work that I do as a trauma release, a therapeutic coach, is to help people through those turbulent times. And sometimes you need someone even more, and sometimes you need someone that is more therapeutically, and sometimes you need a licensed therapeutic professional, like a licensed professional counselor or a licensed therapist or a psychologist. But sometimes even like even a coach can move you through those times. So my word to you this week is allow. Allow all of the emotions to be present. This is how we expand our emotional intelligence, and allow yourself to exist and share with the community, whether that community is a therapist, whether it's your family, whether it's your church, whether it's your best friend, whomever it is. Allow yourself to be able to be vulnerable with the people who are safe in your life because they're waiting to support you. All right. Share this episode with someone who needs it today, with someone who needs to hear it. Share with a friend, a family, a colleague, because we are in such a weird time. And I think we have to continue to support one another and all of the emotions that we feel and not just moving in toxic positivity. I think positivity and empowerment is great. And I never like to step over what's so. And so share this with someone who needs it. And we appreciate your review. Please leave us a 5-star review. That helps the platforms, Apple, Spotify, whatever platform, Google, to serve up this podcast more for the people who need it and get this message out. And finally, if you are new to this podcast, welcome. Don't forget to subscribe so that you don't miss an episode. So go out and be in your feelings in a good way. Be in your feelings this week, allow them, and we will continue to talk about how we navigate our various emotions throughout this season. And until the next time I see you, stay empowered.